This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
Good evening, India, and good evening, Bengaluru. A warm welcome to all the listeners and viewers from this beautiful garden city. Welcome to tonight's episode of Storytellers Cafe. And good morning to all the viewers from the United States, Cincinnati, Phoenix, and Chicago. Wishing you a very warm Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of Storytellers Cafe, and I'm your host, Usha Venkatraman. And we have something brewing in our menu. Of course, every Sunday there's something special on the Sunday menu. But tonight, it is indeed special. I think rarely have we had a male guest on Storytellers Cafe. I think tonight's guest is the second guest, if I'm not mistaken. Well, friends, let me give you a little blurb about stories and how it affects our brain. You see, our brains have neocortex, which is connected to a complex series of nerves and networks called the limbic system. When we tell stories, different areas of our brain are stimulated and start to work together, combining words, logic, emotions, and sensory images. Right? Tonight, our guest on Storytellers Cafe, his stories hit your limbic brain. So stay tuned. Let me introduce our guest for tonight. It is Amin Haq from Bangalore, Amin Haq of Storywalas. If there is one thing Amin loves more than telling stories, it is listening to them. The founder of Storywalas, Amin teaches storytelling so that he can learn it better himself. I totally agree with him. He has coached business leaders, entrepreneurs, aspiring storytellers, teachers in the art of storytelling. He loves climbing hills and playing table tennis. Well, let me bring in Amin Haq to our studios, and it is our pleasure. Storytellers Cafe is indeed honored, and it's a pleasure to have you as our guest, Amin. You're the second male on Storytellers Cafe after Dushyant Sridhar, who's also from Bangalore. Welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here. And it's my privilege to be in conversation with you. When I started out as a storyteller about 8 or 10 years ago, there were three divas on the Indian storytelling fraternity, and you were one of them. So you were walking this path much before me. And it's a pleasure to be in conversation with you today. It's an honor.
Thank you. You really are kind, sir. And let me tell all my viewers when I met Amin, yes, I know, I think he was starting early on stories, on storytelling, but he was already, I think, in a wonderful media and advertising business, if I'm not mistaken. And I have seen this young man progress leaps and bounds in the world of storytelling. So I'm as eager as everyone out there to know more about Amin's journey in the world of stories. So, Amin, can you start with telling our viewers about your journey into storytelling?
I'd like to believe that no matter which business we are in, once we are in business, we are all in the storytelling business, all of us. So, as humans, we are born with the storytelling muscle. But just to be born with something is not good enough. We are all fortunate enough, or most of us are fortunate enough to be born with two legs. That doesn't make us marathon runners. We need to exercise those muscles to become better marathon runners. So, in in that sense, I am no different from most other human beings. I was born a storyteller, just like other human beings are. I just got lucky that I got to exercise those muscles a lot more than others. And how that happened is an interesting story by itself. When I was a kid, I was very shy, reserved, not very outgoing, not very confident. I had a little bit of stammer as well. So I was that child who would be on the last bench. And despite knowing the answers to the questions that teachers would ask, I would not raise my hand because raising the hand would mean people looking at me, and I hated that. But my mother was a teacher. And around the time when I was in class 6th or class 7th, she enrolled me into elocution competitions, debate competitions, poetry recitation, theater society, Boy Scouts, National Cadet Corps, and a little bit of speech therapy to help me overcome my reserved nature. I was completely out of my comfort zone, and I must be honest, I hated it. But when I look back now, I am very grateful to my mother because all of these things helped me a lot, especially theater. My first role in theater was to play a dead body on stage. I was in class 7th, and you can imagine that's a very difficult role to play. There were flies and mosquitoes buzzing around, and I couldn't even move. I got to a better place next year when I got a speaking part. I had one word to say in a 1 hour play. All I had to say was, attention! But I got to a better place in a couple of years. By grade 10th, I had written my first play and I directed it. No, no, don't think whatever you're thinking. It was a terrible, terrible play, and I'm very embarrassed by it. There are people who have still not recovered from the experience of watching that play yet. They are still deeply scarred by it. But my teachers, they gave me a lot of encouragement, and theater became a large part of my life. So I did a lot more theater in high school and in college than most kids get to do. I studied communications. Yeah, I studied that. I went to an institute called MICA, Mudra Institute of Communications in Ahmedabad, and did a course in advertising and got placed in an ad agency called Ogilvy in Mumbai, the mecca of advertising in India. Now, advertising is one kind of storytelling. You tell stories of brands. And in the evenings, after my work got over, I would do theater, which is another kind of storytelling. So, you see, for many years, what I was doing was I was working with narratives. When I took a transfer and moved to Delhi, I I started shooting photographs, and photography is nothing but visual storytelling. And I did a course later in film studies, which is understanding narratives from another perspective. So, a lot of my work and my hobbies, they all have to do with stories in some form or other. And working with stories, I realize they're really powerful. They influence behavior. I realize that a lot of what we do and why we do it has got to do with the stories we believe in. But I also realize we don't leverage the power of stories as much as we do. And I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to explore that. That's how Storywalas was born. Storywalas was born out of this desire to work with teachers and help them become better storytellers. So that's my story.
Wonderful. What an interesting journey. Absolutely, you're right. Advertising, copywriting is definitely storytelling, and then visual storytelling. Wonderful. So you're from Mica. Excellent. I met few other people who are from Mica today. So that's a wonderful thing. But what made you make this transition into storytelling? Or I don't know whether I should say that, into oral narrative, let's say. Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So I was at a stage in career where I was wondering what next to do. I was in Bangalore. I had reached a senior position in advertising, and the next move was leading me towards Mumbai. It's a wonderful city. I have lived there earlier, but at the stage of life that I was in, I wanted to be in Bangalore, and I was wondering what to do next. In the evenings, I used to do theater, and I stumbled upon storytelling when I saw a performance storyteller uh, called Geeta, who runs Kathalaya. And I remember asking Geeta, Geeta, what do you do? And she said, I tell stories. I said, that's all. That's really nice. That's really cute. But what do you do for a living? And she said, I tell stories. I said, I don't believe you. You can't make money telling stories. And I remember her answer. She said, I make enough to sustain myself. And that's the moment I thought, well, if a lot of aspirants in any career are born like that. A lot of cricketers are born when they saw Sachin Tendulkar batting. A lot of musicians are born, or singers are born when they listen to a Kishore Kumar or a Mohammad Rafi singing. I saw Geeta tell a story and say, hey, that's interesting. I can also do that. And if she can sustain herself, I'm sure I can sustain myself. So call it uh, call it false bravado or a foolish experiment. Uh, but I had no clue what I was getting into. And Geeta had been doing it for a long time. You had been doing it for a long time. Jiva had been doing it for a long time. I had no clue. So I sat with some of my friends at a coffee shop in at the Leela Hotel in Bangalore, and we came up with a few names. Storywalas was one of them, and they encouraged me and said, "Do it, I mean, do it." And in one of those moments, we registered the name Storywalas, and then I went to office. So I took an office. I said, I'm not going to work from home. I'll take an office. And I booked a office on rent in Indranagar, and I went to office. And then when I sat down, I said, what do I do next? I've got an office, I've got a name, but what do I do next? And that's when my friend, she said, you don't sit in office. This is a different kind of work. You tell stories. So if people are not coming to you, you go to them. So we went to Spastic Society, which was a school close by, and asked them, do you think we can tell stories here? And I still remember the question that the principal asked me. She said, do you know anything about autism? And I said, I have no clue. She said, wonderful, come in. It's not important that you know anything about, but do you know something about how to tell stories? I said, I'm not sure, but we'd love to give it a shot. So we started telling stories at Spastic. It's been 7 years, every Friday, 7 years. We've been telling stories there. Then there was the store which was just about opening up around that time. It was called Atta Galata, a new coffee shop, come bookstore, come performance venue. And I went there and met the owners. They started around the same time as Storywalas did. And I said, would you like me to come and tell stories here? And Lakshmi of Atta Galata, she said, it would be wonderful. So I started telling stories there. And that's how Storywala started. By just going out and telling stories and doing pro bono work. No money. Actually, we didn't see money for a long time. We didn't see money for 9 long months.
9 months. I mean, I didn't see money for about 15 to 20 years. It was pro bono. Never knew that one could have a profession out of storytelling. When I started way back in 1996, I thought it was just a hobby. Didn't even know there was a Geeta or a Jiva there until 2010. But I mean, I remember maybe I met you at Atta Galata and saw you telling stories. If you remember, once I'd come to Bangalore during Eid time, you're fasting, Ramzan, and I don't know whether it was Atta Galata. Can you tell us more about Storywalas? I know it's a group of storytellers, but what, and if I'm also not mistaken, you are also one of the founders of Bangalore Storytelling Association or Storytellers. Could you talk to us a little about these two?
Sure. So, the Storywala's name, it's an interesting story. I sat with my friends at the Barista Cafe, which was at the Leela, and we were thinking of what names, when you think of an organization, you want to give it a name. And we thought of a lot of names under the story tree or the the story box, or a lot of names to do with stories, the story consulting company or story co, etc. But I do remember when I was a child, I had this memory of a theater group run by Shashi Kapoor, the actor's father-in-law, Jennifer Kendall's father. And they used to, back then in India, popularize Shakespeare by doing Shakespeare in small towns and villages of India. And they would do it in Hindi, not just in English.
Yes.
They would adapt the text. That theater company was called Shakespeare Walas. So one part of the story is that that name had struck a chord and that it stayed with me. The second part of the story was I was very clear that Storywalas would not just be a performing arts company, but a teaching, training, consulting organization where anyone who wants to learn storytelling will be able to work with them. And the corporate segment, since I had worked in advertising, since I had worked in marketing, since I had worked in consulting, was something that I was familiar with. And I knew that there would be applications of storytelling which are possible there. So I wanted it to be very simple for clients to remember us. And as simple as, oh, we have a story need, call the Storywalas. It's two words, story and walas. And walas means the story people or the story folks or the storytellers. So I wanted to make it really simple for clients to remember us. That, oh, we've got a story need, call the Storywalas. So that's the second part about the name. And the third part is I wanted a Hindi English combination, something that stays in people's minds, and it had a ring to it. So that's how the name happened. You're right. It was Atta Galata where we first met. It was the Ramzan time, the month of Ramzan when I was fasting. We were approaching Eid, and that's where you heard me tell a story. So your memory serves you well. A good storyteller also has a good memory, and this is a good sign. The other thing was the Bangalore Storytelling Society. So you guys, Jiva, you, Geeta, you made it easier for us. Like you said, it took many years for you to monetize storytelling. In many ways, we walked the path that you had walked earlier, and it was easier for us to do that, so we could get to that place faster. I came into storytelling around a time when many others like me were making inroads into storytelling, and we were trying to find our way. And we thought if we could come together and share with each other, share what we learned from our failures, share how to benchmark and how to benchmark pricing and say, hey, how much did you charge for a school there? How many hours did you do work there? It would allow us to bring in some standardization. We also thought that if we come together as a body, we would be able to make storytelling more visible. So it was a bunch of like-minded people who were just starting out, wanting to share, wanting to learn, wanting to amplify their voice, who said if we come together as a body, as a not-for-profit, we could amplify our voice, give a platform to other storytellers, codify the learnings, and teach it and pass it on faster. And that's how Bangalore Storytelling Society was born. It was a initiative by some wonderful people. And I was just one of the co-founders there, but they were wonderful people, all that of and are friends with. So there was Deepta Vivekanand, wonderful storyteller. Soumya, a very, very deep, calm, person, wonderful human being, wonderful storyteller. Aparna Athreya, full of energy, very passionate, brings her passion to her tellings. Uh, Vikram Sridhar, another male, uh,
Yes.
and a very rare male in the world of storytelling back in those days.
Yes.
Vikram
Yes.
and I have known each other even before Bangalore Storytelling Society happened. So even before Storywalas took formal shape,
Okay.
he
Okay.
also used to work in the corporate world. He was in Airtel, if I remember well. And we used to go and tell stories at a school together. So he used to come and volunteer, and I used to go and volunteer at a school. So it was these people, all of us, who came together. And you've seen how each one of them has blossomed and has
Yes. Yes.
has yeah, grown in their work.
Yes, absolutely. So wonderful. In fact, Bangalore, I would say, thrived more. There are a lot of storytellers who were inspirational, who were doing an excellent body of work. And Chennai also. Chennai also today, I think it's really thriving with many storytellers. But I think Bangalore was where the initiative was born. Of course, there was Jiva in Chennai and Geeta Ramanujam in Bangalore. But this group of young storytellers coming in and taking it further, moving forward, I think was what all of you did. Wonderful, excellent, really inspirational. So, Amin, tell us. We would like to hear a story from you before we go on to more conversations. And do feel free to have coffee or tea or kombucha, whatever you are having. Everyone is turning into keto and into intermittent fasting and whatever, plant based food. So, go ahead. And I know that for all you listeners out there, Amin tells wonderful Dastan Goi. I've heard him personally. That was the first story at the first Chennai Storytelling Festival in Chennai. I still have a picture of you, Geeta, Kamini Ramachandran, and myself sitting and chatting. And I'm going to put that up on the FB post. So I remember that, and that's where I saw you mesmerizing everyone with your Dastan Goi. So
So
can you?
I'll
Yes.
start with a poem. I'll start with the poem. You know, to be a storyteller, I think it's a crazy choice. It's not a, it's not an easy choice. It's not a rational decision that people make. It's not a practical or a pragmatic decision that people make. It's a decision made out of passion. And I also believe that pragmatic people don't make the world a better place. They make compromises. It's people who are passionate. It's people who are ziddi, who make the world a better place. Edison was a ziddi guy, and that's how we got the bulb. He didn't give up.
Yes. Yeah.
He said, I'll do it. He was not afraid of performance appraisal, where an HR manager will come to him and say, hello, Mr. Edison, I'd like to talk to you about the bulb project that you've been working on. No, he had no fear. And it's people like these. Gandhi, ziddi guy, ziddi guy. That's how we got independence. Mother Teresa, ziddi person. Martin Luther King, ziddi person. So, in some way, this poem that I'm going to start with, it pays homage to all the storytellers and all the ziddi people. In some ways, the people who, like Gandhi said, first they'll call you mad, then they'll laugh at you, and then they will follow you. So I want to pay an homage to all the storytellers and all the madmen out there. So this poem is called "आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाए," because only mad people make the world a better place. In Urdu, there is a word for this, junoon, but I'll work with the Hindi phrase, the Hindi word pagalpan. आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाए, तेज हवाओं से लड़ जाएं, आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाए, आओ पैसों को ललचाएं, कि पैसों के पीछे तो सब भागते हैं, पैसों को अपने पीछे भगाएं। आओ पैसों को ललचाएं, उससे उल्टी दिशा में जाएं, गर रास्ते में मिल जाए, गर रास्ते में मिल जाए तो उसको कर दें टाटा बाय। आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाएं, तेज हवाओं से लड़ जाएं, कि आसमान के सारे तारे अपनी जेब में भर के लाए। सपने देखें तो ऊंचे सपने देखें, हैं? कि आसमान के सारे तारे अपनी जेब में भर के लाएं, तारों से कंचे खेलेंगे और ये चांद हमारा स्ट्राइकर होगा। ये बेमानी सा सपना नहीं, जिद पे अड़ जाएं, इसी सपने को सच करके दिखलाएं। आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाएं, तेज हवाओं से लड़ जाएं। आओ मौत से दोस्ती कर लें, सबसे बड़ा डर मौत का डर, और जो डर गया समझो मर गया। आओ मौत से दोस्ती कर लें, उसको पार्टी में बुलवाएं, हफ्ते हफ्ते मिलके आए, हाय हेलो करके आए, और दिल से मौत का डर हटा के जिंदगी से मिलने जाएं। आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाएं, तेज हवाओं से लड़ जाएं। और अगली लाइन में एक चुटकुला भी है, एक जोक भी है। हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख ईसाई हैं ये सारे भाई भाई। यही था जोक। जोर से हंसिए, क्योंकि आजकल तो हमने इसे जोक बना के रखा है। तो हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख ईसाई हैं ये सारे भाई भाई, आओ इस चुटकुले को भी सच मान ले हम, थोड़ा पागल हो जाए हम, तेज हवाओं से लड़ जाए हम। आओ फिर से बच्चे बन जाएं, और ये मान ले कि अकेला ही सारी दुनिया को बदल सकता हूं मैं, क्योंकि जो मानता है वही बदलता है। आओ फिर से बच्चे बन जाएं, जिद पे अड़ जाएं, थोड़ा पागल हो जाएं।
बहुत खूब. Wonderful, wonderful. Lovely. Did you pen it yourself? Did you write? So beautiful, beautiful. So is this your hobby? I know it's a story in itself. So do you do some story writing as well? Amin?
I write. We've written a lot of, when Twitter came about, I write poetry and I write what I call super short stories. Recently, I also judged. I was a jury member on the Orange Flower Festival, which is a short story competition for women writers and authors from India. So I was a jury member on that. I was a jury member on that earlier as well, and I ran a workshop for women writers and authors as well. But let me tell you another interesting story. We run a platform called Super Short Stories.
Okay.
Now, super short stories, we live in a world where attention spans are very low. And somehow people have gotten this idea that stories tend to be very long. So when Twitter came about, storytellers, writers, they started thinking, is it possible to tell a story within the constraints of 140 characters? But where there are constraints, there is creativity. And that's how a lot of people started doing interesting work on Twitter. I call them Twitter-sized stories. One of the platforms actually, which is doing really cool work, is Terribly Tiny Tales. Another guy who did fantastic work is Devdutt Patnaik. He condensed the entire Mahabharata in 36 tweets. 36 tweets, the entire Mahabharata. And it's fascinating read. So when I saw that, I said, why don't we start a platform where people can contribute and write super short stories? These are stories told in Twitter format. Interestingly, one of the world's shortest stories is attributed to Ernest Hemingway, who wrote a story in 6 words. For sale, comma, baby shoes, comma, never used. Now, why are they up for sale? Why were they never used? It's up for the reader to interpret. So, We started by writing a few stories ourselves, Usha, on super short stories. They started going viral, and we invited people to write in with their own stories. And now, what we do is we have an editorial team that edits those stories and puts them out on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So that's super short stories. I also write stories in the form of poetry. So there are stories which have been written in verse, and there are stories which are written in the form of poems. If you look at Mahabharata, it was written as a poem. If you look at Ramayana, it was written as a poem. Iliad, Homer, they poetry back in the days was a popular form of constructing stories. So I like
Yes,
telling
yes.
stories through poetry as well. So let me share another one. This one I wrote when I came across research, and it's very interesting research. I'm sure you'd love to hear it. The word children here most often, till the time they are 10 years old, is guess what it is? Usha, take a shot.
Uh, my children are close to 30 now, so I have forgotten
No, no,
to
it's
what is
but
the word that children often hear till they
yeah,
are 10.
look at the world around you and say, what could be the word that kids who are being raised today, till the time they grow from 0 to 10, what is the word that they could be hearing most often? And it's not a
Do
very
this,
pleasant one.
do this, do that.
Do this, do that, or don't do this, don't do that,
Yeah.
don't go here, yeah, keep quiet. No. So there's somebody has done this very interesting research, yeah, and what they found was that the word children hear most often, and you're right, on top of that list, the first word is no. No, you can't do this. No, don't go there. No, don't do this. This the second word, and it's a very sad list, and it's a comment on the times that we live in. The second word on that list is keep quiet. And it's really sad. We can't wait for our children to start speaking. When they are born, when they are 6 months old, when they are 9 months old, they start making these funny sounds, and and we say, when would this child make a perfect word? When would this child make a sentence? And once they start speaking, we go to a restaurant with our friends and say, hey, hey, keep quiet. We're having a conversation here. We give them the mobile phone. They go to the school. They're full of curiosity, and the teacher says, keep quiet. So I was very disturbed. And, in this list, I love you is also there, but it comes at number 6 or 7. So it's really sad. So I wrote a poem. I took the topic which was number 2 on the list, keep quiet. And this poem is called Chup Raho. It's an appeal from kids to grown-ups. It's an appeal from youngsters to parents, to teachers, to anybody who works with kids. And here's how it goes. जब हंसता हूं तो हंसने दो, जब रोता हूं तो रोने दो, जब हंसता हूं तो हंसने दो, जब रोता हूं तो रोने दो, ये भी क्या बात हुई कि जब देखो ये कहते हो चुप रहो, चुप रहो, चुप रहो। कभी कभी तो रोता हूं, कभी कभी तो रोने दो, कभी कभी तो रोता हूं, कभी कभी तो रोने दो, ये भी क्या बात हुई कि जब देखो ये कहते हो चुप रहो, चुप रहो, चुप रहो। क्यों क्लास हमारी लेते हो, क्यों लेक्चर हमको देते हो, क्यों क्लास हमारी लेते हो, क्यों लेक्चर हमको देते हो, जब भी रोता पाते हो बस वहीं शुरू हो जाते हो, इतने बड़े होकर के भी क्यों बच्चों जैसे रोते हो, एंड मच वर्स, लड़का होकर के भी तुम क्यों लड़की जैसे रोते हो। अब कौन इन बड़ों को बतलाए, अब कौन इन बड़ों को समझाए कि तेंदुलकर भी रोता है, कि धोनी भी रोता है, और 1 रन से मैच हार के विराट कोहली भी रोता है, कि मर्द को दर्द भी होता है। भाई आप कहेंगे ये तो देसी है, तो मैं आपसे ये कहता हूं कि रॉजर फेडरर भी रोता है, नडाल भी रोता है, एंडी मरे को देखो कितना रोता है, आमिर खान भी रोता है, शाहरुख खान भी रोता है। बड़े बड़े शहरों में ऐसा छोटा मोटा होता है। मैं तो छोटा बच्चा हूं, मैं तो छोटा बच्चा हूं, मुझे छोटा ही रहने दो। ये तो मेरा बचपन है, बचपन को बचपन ही रहने दो। ये भी क्या बात हुई कि जब देखो ये कहते हो, चुप रहो, चुप रहो, चुप रहो। So, so that was that.
That was amazing. Beautiful, beautiful. I was just completely captivated, Amin, listening to this. I didn't know this facet of your many other achievements. Wonderful. I mean, there's so much to talk. I want to jump in and talk about two things. One is about the literature festival that you host. I think it's called the Neve Literature Festival in Bangalore. And also the work that Storywala does, that is corporate storytelling, how you train the corporates. And I'm sure our listeners would love to know a little more about it and one story from you.
Sure. So let me talk about the Neve Literature Festival first. Neve, as the name itself connotes, Neve means foundation. So this wonderful academy, a school called the Neve Academy. It's an IB school. It's a school which aims to foster imagination and creativity in children. And they sat back and said, why is it that books are confined to libraries? Why is it that in children's imagination, poets are either dead people or old people? Why is it that in children's imagination, illustrators is a big word, something to be scared of, or something to aspire to, but way out of your reach? So they said, why don't we have a festival of books, of authors, of poets, of illustrators, where children get to meet and interact with them? And books are not confined to libraries. So I'm one of the co-founders at the Neve Literature Festival. Kavita, who's the founder of Neve Academy. Sneha, who's a wonderful, wonderful storyteller, tells amazing stories in the audio-visual medium. Is the head of production at one of the most awarded ad film production houses in India. She's another co-founder, and Rasil Ahuja, who's a parent at the school and an author, and a wonderful author. So these are the co-founders, along with me, my partners in crime, uh, amazing minds who have conceptualized and who year after year bring this festival to life. The idea behind the festival is to help children meet poetry, meet imagination, meet authors, meet. I still remember, I'll share a small anecdote from the first edition of the festival, where Sudha Murthy, one of the most popular and one of the largest selling children's authors in India, she was doing the keynote. Last year, it was done by Devdutt. This year, the festival's gone virtual. But let me share an anecdote from the first one, where Sudha Murthy was the keynote speaker. She came and shared a story that has stayed with me. So we all know that Sudha Murthy is the wife of Mr. Narayan Murthy, co-founder of Infosys. And she says, that when I got married to Murthy, and this is in her own words as she was describing it, she said, when I got married to Murthy, as it happens when you get married to someone, you get invited to a lot of places for lunches and for dinners. So his business colleagues, his clients, our first 3 4 months were a days because we were going from lunch to dinner to lunch to dinner. And one day we were invited by a client or a business associate who was very well to do. They sent a car to pick us up. And if you remember those days, Narayan Murthy and when he married Sudha Murthy, they weren't at Infosys. So he was not very well to do then. They were not very well to do. So she said they sent us a car and we went to their house. And that house, if you use a word from Urdu, it was Alishan. There was marble flooring, teak wood. There were chandeliers, and these were beautiful chandeliers. And on the dining table, there was bone china and crystal, and you could see your reflection in the cutlery. And she said, I remember coming back from that house. We saw the entire house. The hosts took us around the house. And she said, I remember coming back from that house, and on the way back telling Murthy how poor these people were. They didn't have a single book in their house. So her message to parents was very important, and I'm happy to repeat that message. We want our children not to watch TV but to read books. We want our children not to be glued to the screen but read books. But children don't do what they hear us tell them to. They do what they see us do. So parents have to lead by example. Parents have to let go of the screen and the mobile phone. If parents are watching Big Boss on television and say, why aren't you reading? Children are not going to read. So Neve Book, the Neve Book Award today, it's not just a festival, but there's a book award that celebrates great writing for children in India. It was born out of this desire that, a lot of parents come and ask teachers, what can I say to my child? My child doesn't eat okra. My child doesn't eat green leafy vegetables. Miss, can you please tell my child to do so? And a lot of parents come and tell the teachers, Miss, my child doesn't study. Can you please tell my child to do so? And just think about this question for a minute. Who are you asking to speak with your child? Who's the parent? Who does the child live with? Who does this? Have we outsourced even parenting to schools? That miss will say this and your child will follow. So what will you do? So it is these kind of questions that resulted in the birth of Neve Literature Festival. So it's not just a festival for children. It's a festival about children's books. And parents are a very important part and a very important stakeholder in this festival.
Yes, very well said. Walk the talk. You have to walk what you talk. And that is the best way to set an example. Wonderful, Amin. And can we come to what Storywalas are doing right now? You had a busy morning yourself. So you could tell us something about the busy morning that you had.
I was running a workshop for Deloitte leaders. Deloitte is one of the big four consulting firms, and they are one of our clients. So I was teaching storytelling. And when I say teaching storytelling, it's a heavy word, teaching. I myself am a kindergarten student of storytelling. So I'm not a master or an expert at storytelling. But I do remember someone said this once, that if you want to learn something, try teaching it and you'll end up learning it faster. So today I try to teach storytelling so that I can learn it faster for myself. So I was running a class on storytelling. A lot of my students are business leaders who want to learn storytelling to connect better, to inspire action. They deal with millennials and they find that PPTs don't work anymore. They want to lead with stories, but they want to learn that. They have studied engineering and they've studied MBA and they've studied finance and they are chartered accountants. But what they want to do is they want to learn storytelling now. It's one of the most powerful ways to lead people. And the best leaders have always been storytellers, whether they are political leaders or spiritual leaders, uh, business leaders. They've been great storytellers, but not everyone. So there's a great curiosity now in the corporate world to learn storytelling, and that's a large part of our work at Storywalas too. So that's what
Wonderful.
that's what I was doing there.
Okay, so how many storytellers or how many members do you have under your umbrella?
At Storywalas, the corporate side is led by myself and Rajesh and Tanya. That's three of us who lead the corporate engagements. In the colleges, apart from all of us, we also teach at colleges. But there's Navneeta. So she also teaches at colleges in addition to all of these. Lakshmi leads the engagement with the special kids. So she teaches at Spastic. And the teacher trainer and you know, the one who leads our engagements with schools is Nupur. And both Nupur and Chetali are the performers or the oral storytellers who do just oral storytelling or teach teachers how to teach in the classroom using stories. And I've always believed that good teachers are storytellers. In fact, speaking of teaching, if we close our eyes and think about our childhood, and if we were to think about our favorite subjects, I'm sure when you think of your favorite subjects, you'll also be reminded of your favorite teachers. Similarly, when you think about the subjects you didn't like, you'll be reminded of teachers you didn't like. It's the teachers who make subjects interesting. And I thought with storytelling, we could make teachers interesting. So that's what Nupur and Chaitani do.
Wonderful. Excellent. You have a super business model of this whole thing. That's wonderful. That's also required, you see, to structure it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm one of those storytellers who's not structured. It's like it's just a passion, and you want to tell stories. Not all stories, certain stories, but it's wonderful to see the way you have structured this model, and then which is working beautifully and executing it so wonderfully. And this is another way which nurtures and keeps alive our oral tradition. So that is really wonderful. Wishing you all the best in this endeavor, and may you achieve success. And I've been very curious. I read somewhere, maybe in the social media, that you were doing workshop somewhere in South America. I don't know, because I've been to Brazil, and my dream is to go down the Amazon River and go into the deep, dark jungles, in Brazil. And can you just tell me a little bit about it? This is my own curiosity. And then please finish off with a story.
Sure. So a large part of our work has also got to do with the social sector. People in the social sector are doing a very important job. They're trying to change the world and make it a better place. But if you have to change the world, you have to begin by changing the story that the world believes in. Because of a lot of our actions come from our belief systems. And our belief systems come from the stories that we mind. So if you want to change the world, you have to not start with the actions that change this action. That won't work. I've been a student of communications, and I learned that, we all want people to put on seatbelts, but telling them to put on seatbelts won't help. That's focusing on the action. We have to build the narrative first. And when you build the right narrative, the actions follow. For example, I'll give you a simple example. If I was walking past someone and if I touched them by mistake with my feet, what would I do? In the Indian system, we would bend down, touch their feet or touch their knees to our heart or our head. Now, why do we do that? Where does that action come from? In the Western world, we would say, sorry, buddy, But in India, we don't go back. We lean forward. We bend down and touch someone's feet and touch it back to our feet. Now,
Yeah.
that actions come from a belief system, and the belief system is that there is God who resides in everyone. And what did I just do? I touched a God with the lowest part of my body. So I don't say, "Hey, buddy, sorry." I don't do that with God. I lean forward and I touch the lowest part of the body of the other person so that these two gods are back in equilibrium. So all actions come from belief systems, and belief systems come from the stories we buy into. So if we have to change actions on the ground, we have to change the stories. And in social sector, people are trying to change the world, but they need the power of narrative on their side. So I teach at we work with Dasra, which is a huge,
Yes.
body that works with social sector organizations like Cry or Room to Read, and funds them as well. So
Yes.
we work with the leaders there, teach storytelling. We are doing some work with Omega Network. We work with Cry. We work with Encore, which is another uh, social sector cohort accelerator. But one of the institutes where I teach storytelling is Amani, and Amani is a institute where change makers learn how to be better change makers. So you don't just jump in and start an NGO, but you learn the tools of the trade. And one of the things that they learn is storytelling. And Amani has a campus in Kenya, and one in Bangalore, and one in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I started teaching at Amani about 3 years ago. It's been a great journey. So I ran the first cohort and class in Bangalore. And when that went off, we took the program to Sao Paulo. And that's what I was doing at Brazil,
Yeah.
teaching stories. I've always loved traveling, and I'm glad that my teaching work takes me to different places. And not just that I am able to teach storytelling and elevate the storytelling of people who are making the world a better place. That's great ROI for the work that I do. So that's how the trip to Brazil happened.
Thank you. So you have answered my curiosity, which's been nibbling me, and then suddenly it came and said, "Hey, ask him about that. What was he doing in Brazil?" Thank you so much, Amin. And we would like you to end with a story.
Sure. I'll end with two actually, and very short ones, but ones which are really close to my heart, and both of them are true stories. True.
Okay.
So I'm not going to dive into the world of mythology, which I often do. I love that world. And the world of folk tales and legends and myths, which I love and which I often do. But today I'm going to dive into a very different world. Uh,
Go ahead.
the world of true stories. And a lot of people often ask me, especially the corporate work that we do, what's the difference between public speaking and oratory and storytelling? And I say, storytelling goes deeper. Storytelling is not oratory. Oratory is when you speak, someone listens. Storytelling is a conversation. Storytelling is not presentation skills, it is not about PPTs. But more importantly, story is not just what you say, story is what you do. So, on that note, I'll share a story. Back in the days, Mr. Ratan Tata of the Tata Group, when he was young and he'd just taken charge, he was going from Mumbai to Nashik by road, and the road was not as good as it is today. Long drive, the car broke down, and some of his colleagues, senior colleagues, were with him. Now, what do people do when a car breaks down on a highway? People use that welcome break for a stretch, to stretch their arms and legs, maybe to take a smoke break, or you know what the men do, they go behind the bush. And that's what some of his colleagues were doing. But they soon realized that Mr. Tata was nowhere to be found. So they went looking for Mr. Ratan Tata. Guess where they found him? He was on the road, sitting on the road next to the driver, sleeves rolled up, helping the driver change the wheel. Now we can put up all the posters at the entrance of our building, in the boardrooms, in the elevators, about culture, about values, about the things that we believe in. But story is not just what we say. Story is what you do. And when what you say is in alignment with what you do, and when both of these are in alignment with what we believe in, what our values are, then the story is authentic. Otherwise, there are a lot of stories. But what stands the test of time is an authentic story. That's what stays. So it's important that stories are authentic and they are not just told for the sake of telling, which is why the important job of storyteller, any storyteller, is not just to bring a story alive with voice modulation and expressions. One of the most important job of a storyteller is to choose a story that is in alignment with that person's value system. That's what makes a story authentic. By the way, Ratan Tata is not the only one. There are many people. I
Yes,
told you a
yes,
story
of
about
course.
Sudha Murthy. I must, I can share a quick story about Narayan Murthy, her husband. Back in the days at Infosys, he wanted to send out this message to employees that spend the company's money as your own money. Treat it well. And most companies put out these messages, switch off the lights when you leave the conference room. Please use only one tissue or towel at the toilet, etc. He could have sent out a memo like that. He didn't send out a memo. He started doing something interesting. He started flying economy. Now let this sink in. One of the richest guys in India, one of the biggest wealth creators in India, flies economy. What was he saying? Now that's a story. He's telling other people, I am not asking you to do something I am not doing myself. So the best storytellers are not just those who tell stories, but they lead with their stories. They live their stories. Gandhi was a storyteller like that. He lived a story. So it's important we live that story. Now, in conclusion, I'll end with a story, another true story that has stayed. Uh, it comes from a very interesting time. This is, when I was in office and I was doing performance appraisal for my team members. And, you know, it's that time of the year when you give increments. So you look back at the last year's performance and discuss that. You set goals for the next year, and then basis the conversation, you assign a number, and that becomes the increment. You do that in conversation with the person. I had finished all the performance appraisals, and now it was time for the last person in my team to come in. The last person in my team was also one of the best performers for that year, not just in my team, but in the entire office. This is before Storywalas in the organization where I was working. And uh, he'd done the equivalent of filing a patent. Most people don't file patents. Yeah, so that was like rock star worthy material. But he'd gone ahead and converted that patent into a business. Now, most patents remain patents on paper. So this was like, wow. So I was in my cabin, I was preparing my notes when this person comes in and slides the door open, slides the door back. I was in my room. There was a table here and two chairs on the other side, and I was sitting on my chair. So I looked up, and he had his collars raised up like this. So I looked up at him and I said, without saying a word, I motioned and said, take a seat. So there was a chair there, and he pulled the chair and he sat down on the chair, crossed his legs, crossed his hands, and leaned back. No words are spoken, but the expression on his face is telling me, let's get over with the formality. I know what I have done. You know what I have done. Come on, quickly tell me the number, please. That's what his expression was telling me. And I didn't know what to do because nothing had prepared me for a situation like this. I forgot everything that I had written down. My first thought was, wow, attitude. If youth doesn't have attitude, who else will? And then my second thought was, but buddy, you're already flying so high. Your entire life is ahead of you, and you're already flying so high. Where will you go after this? So I was reminded of a story, and I told him that story, and I'll share that with you. It's a true story. It concerns two wonderful cricketers who made their debut playing cricket, school cricket together in India. One of them retired some time back as one of the greatest cricketers in the world. We all know him, Sachin Tendulkar. The other cricketer, we've all forgot, but he started at the same time. And his name is Vinod Kambli. Now, what happened to Vinod Kambli? According to most cricketers who saw both of them play, everybody believed that Vinod Kambli was the better cricketer. He had better shots, better technique, and he was a left-hander batsman. So you put a left-hander, right-hander combination in, that's devastating for the opposite side. But these are opinions. Let's go with facts. Facts, as in data. Who scored more runs in year one, Sachin or Kambli? It was Kambli. Who scored more runs year two? Kambli. Year three, Kambli. Year four, Kambli. Year five, Kambli. Who scored the first double century? Kambli. Who had the higher batting average year one, year two, year three? Kambli. Then what happened to Kambli? One small problem: attitude. And when the coaches would announce net practice and they would say, see you guys tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Kambli was not there at 6 o'clock. He would swagger in 6:15, 6:20, fashionably late. Even Sachin was not there at 6 o'clock. He was there at 5:30, half an hour before everyone, practicing away. Practicing away. Now, you studied simple interest and compound interest in school. Sachin Tendulkar was compounding at a lower rate of interest, but he was working hard. 5 years later, Kambli got dropped from a match. Sachin kept playing. And then Sachin's graph went up like this. 10 years later, Donald Bradman called Sachin Tendulkar Don. Sachin could have retired. He had broken many records. He was already a legend. People were calling him God. He could have retired after just playing for 10 years and he would still be a legend. But he was hungrier. He kept playing. Around that time, some kids who had grown up watching Tendulkar play, they made their debut. If you ask Sachin, what's your biggest regret? He doesn't talk much. He doesn't talk about, captaincy. He doesn't talk about other things. But he has regrets. And he is the biggest batsman and he couldn't do what others have done. Take a Yuvraj Singh. Yuvraj Singh hit 6 sixes in an over. Sachin doesn't have that. Take Sehwag. Sehwag has triple century. Not once but twice. Sachin doesn't have a single triple. He is the biggest batsman in the world, but he doesn't even have one triple century. Sehwag has two, and he went to Pakistan and scored those triple centuries. But here's something. Sachin started earlier than Yuvraj, Sehwag. Sachin retired later. He outplayed all of them. And even after 20 years, when the coaches would announce net practice, sometimes a Sehwag would be late. Sometimes a Yuvraj would be late. Sachin was still there half an hour before everyone, practicing away. You see, whether you are a cricketer or a storyteller, talent is overrated. Hard work is underrated, but life is a marathon and so is storytelling. And when you've got hard work and talent together, then you are the Sachin Tendulkar of the world of storytelling. So no matter how talented you are, you keep putting in the hard work. In a music class, I heard someone say this, that the difference between a good singer and an exceptional singer is not voice quality. It is the riyaz that a singer puts in. So as a storyteller, you put in that riyaz and nobody can stop you from being a Sachin Tendulkar.
Very well said. Thank you, Amin. It was wonderful. I don't think I need to say anything more with these wise words of wisdom for all the newbie storytellers and all the listeners, I think we shall end the session. Thank you so much. It was great having you as our guest tonight, and wonderful. Wish you a wonderful year ahead and more success to Storyvellas. And thank you.
Thank you, Usha. May the power of stories be always with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.